And together with me is Bambina Olivares-Wise. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hi, Mike. I hope you've all enjoyed your lunch and you're ready to listen to our wonderful speakers for today. And Mike will start it off.
We are here today, as you know, to recognize and celebrate the progress that has been made in terms of the anti-corruption efforts in our public sector. I won't talk much about this because this will be properly presented in a while. So without further ado, let us start off by calling the 2015 Chair of the APEC Business Advisory Council, Ms. Doris Magsaysay Ho.
Thank you. Undersecretary Laura Del Rosario, SOM Chair. Dr. Jessa Stanislao, APEC Senior Officials, Mr. Hans Sikat of the Stock Exchange, APEC colleagues, friends. We're really happy on behalf of all of us from ABAC Philippines, happy to welcome you to the Philippines. It's so nice to see everybody here in strong force as we face this very exciting week. It's also very heartwarming to see the public and private sector coming together, which to me is a great reflection of the importance that accountability and transparency both in the government and private sectors are for our economies. Over the years, both APEC and ABAC have launched efforts to promote good governance. APEC, for instance, has the Finance Minister's process, which aims to promote sound and credible policies for good corporate governance. This year, during our first ABAC meeting in Hong Kong, ABAC launched our rule of law initiatives and held some meetings on corporate governance. We believe that having sound, transparent, and predictable legal environment will lead to being the attractive place for investment. The Philippines, for example, under our President Benigno Aquino, have put great focus on integrity. He calls it the straight path. And the Philippines, as a result, over the past 6 years, is now investment grade by three major rating agencies. And that has helped this economy really become an attractive place for investment. According to the OECD, adopting good governance practices in the corporate sector produces great tangible results. And therefore, we are very eager to listen to our guest speaker, Mr. Jessa Stanislao, speak about the public and corporate performance governance system certification that he has been working on, and also comments from the chairman of the Philippine Stock Exchange on how the corporate sector is welcoming these initiatives. We're so delighted to host this luncheon and to welcome Jessa Stanislao, who will brief us on the important work they're doing in this area. Good governance is key for all economies and for big and small businesses alike. And we feel that for small businesses under the inclusive growth agenda, this is even more important because small businesses cannot afford the cost of having an environment where one has to overcome the barriers from corruption. So we're really thrilled that we're all here today. We started our ABAC 1 with the senior officials, and we were so thrilled that we're doing so much to deepen the engagements among ourselves, the public and private sector. So we look forward to listening to our guest speakers, and we thank you very much for being here. Please enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you. Next. Thank you. We'd like to welcome next, ladies and gentlemen, Undersecretary Laura Del Rosario, the 2015 Chair of the APEC Senior Officials Meeting.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My some colleagues and of course our friends from ABAC and the IGG organizers, the Institute for Solidarity in Asia. First of all, I would like to thank ABAC and its chair for 2015, Ms. Doris Magsaysayho, for hosting this luncheon in honor of the awardees of the Islands of Good Governance. I would also like to commend the Institute for Solidarity in Asia, its chairman, Emeritus Dr. Jesus Estanislao, and its chairman, Dr. Francisco Duque, for carrying on with the initiative and their untiring effort to promote good governance in the public sector. I also, of course, I'm very appreciative of the support of my colleagues, the APEC Senior Officials present here, for accepting our invitation to join us here today. As I acknowledge the presence of our Islands of Good Governance awardees who have proven that change is possible and have resolved to better themselves in the service of the people. What really struck me here is that the Islands of Good Governance, the awardees are predominantly from the government sector, and I know that's in the past, that's where most of the problems emanated from. So good governance for us in APEC is an issue which is taken very seriously. It is, of course, we consider it as an underlying factor and fundamental basis for economic policies to be effective. We recognize it as a primary platform for progress and economic development. Governance permeates our work as a necessary element in the implementation of policies on structural and regulatory reform, standards and conformance, and ease of doing business, among others. We hope that this initiative will catch on within the Philippines and be the beginning of a movement towards good governance, not only within the economy of the Philippines, but also across APEC economies, in order to develop what we call a region of good governance in APEC. We hope to see in the future more islands of good governance across the APEC region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary Del Rosario. Clearly one of our most hardworking senior officials to make sure that APEC is indeed a success. Let's give her another warm round of applause, please. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to now welcome the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Philippine Stock Exchange, Mr. Hans Sikat.
Chairman Doris Magsaysayho, Undersecretary Del Rosario, Dr. Justice Stanislao, and the ABAC members present. By the way, good afternoon and welcome to Manila. It's actually an honor to be here in front of you as I represent effectively the private sector and the various stakeholders that make up this economy. Being part of the Philippine Stock Exchange means we're literally in the middle of everyone, in the middle of issuers, in the middle of investors, in the middle of clients of various companies, and also in the middle of our own regulator and the government. And I think that for those of us who've been watching financial markets over the past few years, I guess when you go back even just relatively recently, the great financial crash of 2008-2009, one would have thought you've seen a lot of these, let's call it financial issues, financial scandals, and I guess regulators and corporate governance initiatives being put forth to try and stem the tide of these issues from happening over again. And then, of course, we're here in 2015, and we hear about a great, I guess, German company kind of stumbling in, and basically we have this big scandal in respect of, effectively, what can you call it, but corporate cheating in terms of how they put this particular, let's call it, defeat device in their own product. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that while markets go in cycles, corporate governance issues should also not go in cycles. I guess we should be building up on the various examples that we've learned through the years. And it's very interesting to see the advocacy of good corporate governance, and of course, Dr. Justice Stanislao being the primary push and I guess leader for this in this country and also in ASEAN, such that now we have the ASEAN Corporate Governance Scorecard, which I think will be the basis for how companies in the region, or at least publicly listed companies in the region, are going to be viewed. We think this is a great example of change in the system, as well as a great example of trying to put forth a template that is applicable not just in one particular geography, but across geographies. And we do hope that such an effort, in fact, not only changes the mindsets of corporations, but also changes the mindset of regulators as well as investors as they, I guess, perform their task in this ecosystem. It's equally important that this effort is now gaining, I would say, gaining traction, because here we are in the figurative eve of ASEAN economic integration, which I guess for those of us in the ASEAN region think it's a very important as well as a milestone change for our own economies. So I guess with that, I would just like to close by saying that we're very supportive of the efforts of improving corporate governance, not just in the country, but in the region. And we do hope that the leadership that Dr. Jess Stanislao and his team, I guess, are pushing is a template that we all can benefit from. So thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you for that, Mr. Sikat. Here to present that template is our guest speaker. Kindly welcome Dr. Jesus Stanislao, who will speak on behalf of the Institute for Solidarity in Asia. And he's the founder and chairman emeritus, whom some of you might also remember as the country's representative to the inaugural APEC Summit in Australia in 1989. Dr. Stanislao.
The chair and delegates of the APEC Senior Officials meeting, the chair and members of the APEC Business Advisory Council, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the privilege and opportunity to present to you the ongoing advocacy against corruption that civil society, business, and government have been undertaking together for several years now in the Philippines. Only deference to age is making me the speaker this afternoon, because actually I speak in behalf of two governance advocacies. The Institute of Corporate Directors, whose chairman is here, Francis Estrada. Francis, can you please stand up? And our Public Governance Advocacy Institute, the Institute for Solidarity in Asia, whose chairman is here, Dr. Francisco Duque. As you can see, I'm much older than they. We are pleased to showcase actual examples of transformation in our public sector. Corruption, as you know and have been discussing in APEC, is evil. It weakens, it kills, and it leaves many millions of people in poverty. Moreover, it undermines faith and trust in government. Therefore, it needs to be fought relentlessly and successfully. The fight against corruption, however, cannot be a mere flash in the pan. It has to be systemic, strategic, and sustained. And this is how we have come to pursue our good governance advocacy in both the private and public sectors together. We have found that good governance is the other side of the same coin as the fight against corruption. Moreover, good governance sounds much better, more positive. It also builds rather than merely destroys. It also cleans up and restores trust rather than merely removes dirt and the sources of dismay. It also strengthens and secures the continuity of regimes that tread on the right path, rather than merely disempowers those marked by graft and corruption. Our good governance advocacy started with business, our Institute of Corporate Directors. We worked with our private sector to embrace the principles and practices suggested by the OECD and now also by the G20. In particular, we worked with our publicly listed corporations to abide by the best practices espoused by ASEAN, and who have been very active in the ASEAN Corporate Governance Scorecard. And tomorrow, we'll be releasing for the first time the results of that initiative, where we will be naming the top 50 corporations in ASEAN based on their compliance with corporate governance rules, practices, and principles as espoused by OECD. And I'm particularly pleased to show that 11 of the 50 top scoring ASEAN publicly listed corporations are Philippine corporations. Believe you me, it's not only fun doing business in the Philippines. We also take our corporate governance rather seriously. And may I add that 4 of those 11 Philippine corporations are under the leadership of one of your ABAC members from the Philippines, Jaime Augusto Sobel de Ayala. However, it takes two to do the governance tango. We therefore had to extend our advocacy to the public sector as well. Some people have been asking me, how long have you been in this game? I said, not quite since I was born, but maybe about 15 years ago as a result of the East Asian financial crisis. And we started with corporate governance. But within 1 year, we were told by everybody in this country, you cannot go far with corporate governance unless you do something about public governance as well. So for our public sector, good governance means they're having to think long-term and strategic. They had to craft a shared vision, further specified by a transformation roadmap. It also means they're having to act systemic and on a sustained basis, and pursuit of the transformation roadmap has to be a shared responsibility on the part of everyone in the public sector enterprise. And I may add, if you're a public sector, you cannot go very far without the participation and involvement of business and civil society. This means having to cascade and win buy-in from everyone, virtually everyone working within the enterprise. It also means continuing monitoring of everyone's performance. It means rewarding above target performance. And above all, it demands that you stay the course until breakthrough transformative results are actually delivered. This is how we have adapted a balanced scorecard into Philippine public sector institutions. We have called it the performance governance system. It is, after all, about good governance that is systemic and sustained so as to deliver transformative performance. We applied the performance governance system from one city to another. We did not quite start from the top and mandated everything down. We started from the bottom. Now we have 5 Philippine cities that can be shown as examples for other Philippine cities to emulate. There are our first city islands of good governance. One is from this island, Luzon, the City of Balanga, represented by the Vice Mayor, the Honorable Noel Joseph Valicañas. Two are from the central part of our country, the Visayas. The City of Mandaue and Cebu, represented by the City Administrator, Attorney James Abadia. And the City of Talisay in Negros Occidental, represented by the City Mayor, the Honorable Eric Saratan. And believe you me, we have two cities coming from our southernmost big island of Mindanao. The City of Butuan, represented by the City Mayor, the Honorable Ferdinand Amante. He has planted 7 million trees in a period of 3 years, all geotagged. And finally, the City of Dipolog, represented by the City Mayor, the Honorable Evelyn Uy. They're here to be recognized. Their stories of transformation are available for our cities, other cities, to look at and possibly learn from. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We have also gone from one national government agency to another. Now we have 5 Philippine national government agencies that we can hold up as examples for other national government agencies, NGAs, to emulate. There are first NGA Islands of Good Governance. The first is our Philippine Heart Center under our Department of Health, represented by Dr. Maria Linda Buhat. The second is our entire Department of Trade and Industry, represented by its Undersecretary, the Honorable Nora Terrado. Now, the 3rd to 5th agencies are under our Department of National Defense. There are Armed Forces of the Philippines, represented by no less than the Chief of Staff, General Hernando Eriberi. The Philippine Army, represented by the Commanding General, Lieutenant General Eduardo Año. And the Philippine Navy, represented by the Chief of Naval Staff, Rear Admiral Bayani Gairlan. They have earned enough battle scars from the fight to transform themselves through good governance. And they are admired by our general public. Based on the surveys, they are one of the most popular government agencies in the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We have also worked hard to transform our state-owned enterprise sector. We call those belonging to the sector as government-owned and controlled corporations, or GOCCs. The first national law passed under the current administration was the Governance Act of 2011 for our state-owned enterprises, or GOCCs. We are proud to present the first mature fruit of that law, the first GOCC Island of Good Governance. This is our National Electrification Administration, represented by the Administrator, the Honorable Edita Bueno. Regulators have great exemplary and beneficial influence upon the sectors they oversee and regulate. It is for this reason that we are especially proud to present the first island of good governance from our regulatory sector. And this is our Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, our Central Monetary Authority, represented by the Deputy Governor, the Honorable Vicente Aquino. Our central bank has embedded good governance practices into its system. Thank you very much. Now that we have these 12 Philippine public sector institutions as islands of good governance, we set them up as beacons for anti-corruption and good governance. This demands that they should continue to give good example and inspiration to all our public sector institutions. They need to be recertified every 3 years for their observance of the Code of Ethics and Integrity, their practice of solidarity and promotion of entrepreneurship in social enterprises for inclusive growth, and their governance outreach proving that social responsibility has been embedded in their transformation program. Even as they share good governance practices with one another, we implore our Philippine public sector institutions to learn from the best anti-corruption and good governance practices from the entire APEC community as well. In doing so, we will one day be able to realize our shared dream. The next time APEC shall meet here in these islands, hopefully 18, 20 years from now, our country, the Philippines, will no longer be just mere islands of good governance. We shall have become an archipelago of good governance. Thank you for your patience and attention. Have a good afternoon.
For me, governance is an opportunity to lead.
Strong political will, having the heart to understand also the current situation of your constituents.
Ang pinakaunang word pumasok sa akin is guide para magbago.
You cannot do it alone. You have to have a team. You have to involve a lot of people.
To me, well, there has to be involvement from top to bottom, to the last member.
When you see the result, I'm sure the people would want it to continue.
Quality, efficient, with the least cost, and most especially, it gives satisfaction and a good outcome for me, that is good. Satisfaction and a good outcome for me, that is good.
Yeah,
Technology versus good governance.
exactly. Again, we would like to thank Dr. Jesse Stanislao. Before good governance became a buzzword on an operative word. Secretary Jess, as we fondly call him, was already in the forefront. He is indeed an icon of good governance, and I think he deserves another warm round of applause. And ladies and gentlemen, to formally close this program and give his thoughts on our first Philippine models of transformation, I would like to call on the chairman of the ABAC Connectivity Working Group, Mr. Anthony Nightingale.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will all agree with me that we've had a very interesting and impressive presentation today. Sincere thanks to Jess Stanislao for his very valuable work on this initiative and for his excellent comments. His passion for the cause of good governance is very clear for us all to see. I'd also like to add my congratulations to all those on the table on the left there from many different government departments for their achievements that have been recognized today. Congratulations to you. Thanks also to Hans for his very valuable comments on the stock exchange and listed companies. It's very good to see the achievements of the Philippines in this field, to go alongside impressive economic growth, good progress in many social development programs, and Laura in its excellent leadership of APEC this year. Maybe that's worth a round of applause. Clean and efficient government at all levels is a great facilitator for business and an important contributor to economic performance. But we realize, of course, that the corporate sector also has a very important and critical role to play in developing and implementing its own codes of conduct, rigorous codes of conduct. After all, if we think about it, any serious corruption in the public sector nearly always has a counterparty in the private sector. So what is one of the many impressive things about the initiative that we've just heard about, the IGG initiative, is that it gathers together all segments of Philippine society. It gathers together the corporate society, it gathers together the public sector, and indeed mobilizes ordinary citizens. This Islands of Good Governance project is making a huge contribution to also one of ABAC's important initiatives this year. Doris referred to it right at the beginning of this program, which is the rule of law. We have realized that the rule of law, transparent, open government, honest business, honest government is hugely important to economic performance throughout our region, which is why we've adopted the initiative. It's actually sponsored by Peru, so I'm sure it will still be an important activity excuse me, next year. It was good to hear that this initiative has now an ASEAN dimension also, and I'd like to think, Alan, that we could incorporate some of these ideas into our APEC work plan as well. Thank you again, Jess, for sharing with us this very important project, and good luck in taking it further into the future. Thank you all very much.
Hello. Thank you for that, Mr. Nightingale. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. We now invite you to watch the symbolic beginning of new partnerships towards good governance and anti-corruption as we call on stage the official photo opportunity for the representatives of the 12 islands of good governance institutions. ISA Chair Emeritus Dr. Jesus P. Stanislao. We'd like to call on ABAC Chair Ms. Doris Magsaysay-Ho, APEC SOM Chair Undersecretary Laura Del Rosario. We'd also like to call Mr. Tan Wan Jian of China, previous host and chair of APEC, and Mr. Raul Salazar Cosio, the next host and chair of Peru, as well as Mr. Tony Tan Katkyong, who is an ABAC member, ABAC Philippines member.